Hey, what's going on everyone? I hope you're having an awesome day today. Welcome back to another video. So today we are on my girlfriend's Kawasaki Ninja 125, and in today's video we're going to be going over the basics of how to ride a motorcycle. Let's get to it. So the first thing you guys are going to want are a pair of gloves, a helmet, which is what I'm wearing right now, and you're also going to want a jacket. It doesn't have to be made out of leather. You can just get a normal fabric jacket that's got Kevlar built into it. As long as it has the Kevlar, then you guys should be all right. Now normally I'd be wearing my motorcycle boots, but today I'm just wearing my martial arts shoes, and the reason why I'm wearing those is because they're white. They'll be quite good at differentiating between my shoe and the levers, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the very first thing you're going to want to do before you mount the bike is make sure you're on the right side. Now the side that is correct is the one where the side stand is down. On some bikes where they have center stands, a lot of scooters have center stands, some adventure bikes have center stands. If you use a center stand, it doesn't really matter which side you mount the bike, as long as of course you take it off the center stand first before you get on it. I mean, obviously on a scooter, if you that sort, then of course you can sit on the bike before and then just use your feet to push up, and then you can come off the center stand that way. So, but on this bike it doesn't have a center stand, so we're just going to mount from this side. As if you're riding a motorcycle, usually they would only have one center stand. It's normally on the left hand side of the bike. All right, so we're going to mount up. Right, so once you've mounted the bike, what you're going to do is you're going to want to take the weight off the side stand, and you're going to use your heel to kick it back up like this. So you'll see it up there like that. It's on a spring, so it should kind of flick to where it needs to be. Now one thing you have to keep in mind, if you start the bike and you put it in gear whilst the side stand is still down, the bike will just cut itself off. So it'll kind of stall. If you're wondering why your bike's stalling when you try putting it in gear, it's because the side stand is down. All right, so before we start the bike, let's just go through what these things here do, what the things on the handlebars do. So obviously you have your ignition switch right here. Now at the moment that is set to off, and then when you want to turn the bike on, you can set that to on, so you can just switch it. On the left hand side, so here is where you've got your indicators. So you push to the right for your indicator to go right, and then you push left for you to turn on the left indicator. Now on motorcycles as well, a lot of them, they don't have a switch for the lights, the front headlights. So instead here you've just got a dipped beam, and then you can flick it up like that to get a full beam. Then underneath the indicator switch, that is where you have your horn. Right there. Now it's not going to turn on because it's not going to go off because the bike isn't on at the moment. Then behind it you've got this little switch here, this little button, and that is just to flash the full beam. Okay, so where this one is, when this is switched up, that's the full beam on all the time. When that is switched down to the dip beam and you press this, it will turn on the full beam until you let go of the switch. And then finally you have here the clutch, which might seem a bit odd for those of you that ride bicycles, or maybe if you've ridden a scooter in the past. This would normally be a brake, but nope, this is the clutch right here. And then here we go. So on the right hand side we've got the accelerator, which is a twisty handlebar here for the throttle. You've got your starter button, so this is to start the bike up, and then here at the top, this little red switch here, this is to cut electricity, or to cut the power from the battery to the engine. So when you're starting the bike, you want the switch to be down here like this. This is to indicate that the current is passing through the motorcycle and you can switch the bike on. If you have the bike on and you decide to flick this switch up like this, it cuts the bike off. So it's kind of like a bit of a security thing, or a bit of a safety thing. If for whatever reason the key comes off the ignition and the bike is still on, you can use that switch there just to turn the bike off. All right, here is the brake fluid reservoir. So depending on the kind of motorcycle you could have one at the front and you could have one at the rear, one for the front brakes and one for the rear brakes. So this is your brake fluid reservoir. And then here finally you have your front brake. So your front brake is here, and that controls the pistons to your discs down at the front wheel. You also have this little thing here called lock. Now I didn't know this when I started riding, but what that does is if you turn the handlebars all the way to a lock left, and then you push the key down and then twist like this, then take the key out, it locks the handlebars. So again, it's just like a security feature to stop people from stealing your bike, or at least to prevent them a little bit. Of course, it doesn't stop them from just picking up the bike and walking away. But yeah, just a little lock of the steering there, a little bit like what you get in cars. When you turn the car off, there's a locking mechanism that stops you from being able to turn the handlebars. Sorry, from being able to turn the steering wheel. So down here on my left foot, we have the foot peg, as you would expect. And then this lever here, this is the gear lever. So this is the one that you use to go up and down the gears. Now, being that motorcycles have sequential gearboxes, the way how they work is you push down to get into first gear, and then between first and second gear, so you lift up kind of halfway between the two, that's how you find neutral, and then you can go up, 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 all the way to 6 gears. Now this particular bike has got 6 gears, not all 125s do, some 125s have maybe 5 gears, but most motorcycles above 125 will probably have 5 gears. You might see some with 4 gears if they're like a dirt bike, you can see that as well. But yeah, so that is the gear lever right there. I don't think there's anything else there that you need to know about. Let's go over to my right foot. And again, the same thing as before. You've got a foot peg here. And this lever here that I'm pressing on right now is the rear brake. That's where you find the rear brake, right there. All you do is you just push it down to apply the brake. All right. So that's where everything is. Let's start the bike up. So first, we're going to want to press this switch here to the on icon. So this is delivering power to the engine. You're going to want to pull in the clutch. Also make sure that the kickstand is up. Turn the key to the on position. Then you're going to press this button here to start the bike. And there you go. Now here, on all bikes, you'll have an icon there that has like a green N. That stands for neutral, okay? So as soon as you have that, then you know you can lift off the clutch and you know the bike isn't going to go anywhere. Right, so what we're about to do is we're going to move off now. So the way to do that is as if you were driving a car, almost exactly the same way, except you're handling the clutch with your left hand. So you pull in the clutch like this, you push down for first gear, and you'll see that little neutral icon has gone. It would be nice if this bike had a gear indicator. However, you'd be surprised how many motorcycles do not have gear indicators. So just keep that in mind. But now I know that I'm in first. If I push down on the lever anymore, it won't go down any further. That's how you know you're in first. Now what we're going to do, we're going to pull off, but we're not actually going to use the gas, okay? This here is the gas. You can probably hear that. We're just going to use the clutch. So you can see the bike's moving forward already. There we go. And now I can lift my foot off the ground. And look, the bike is riding itself. No gas whatsoever. And then if I want to shift into second gear, I pull in the clutch, and then I will kick up that lever down on my left, all the way past neutral, up to second. Here we go. Boom. Now that is in second gear. Again, no gas. This is all just using the clutch. Okay? You don't have to use the accelerator to get the bike to go forward. It does help if you're on like a hill or something like that. It definitely helps, but look, no accelerator whatsoever. You'll find this easier to do on larger bikes that have a little bit more torque and a little bit more power. But yeah, look, the bike is just riding itself right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn around and head back into the direction that I was. To do that, I'm going to pull in the clutch. I'm going to push either the front brake or the rear brake, or both together. I'm going to put the bike down into first, and then I'm going to turn around. Now I'll put my foot on the ground there so I can check the junction to make sure there are no cars coming this direction. Alright, now I use a little bit of gas there to move off, and that's fine. But once you get used to using just the clutch, it's really easy, because then once it's in gear, look, you can just pull the throttle and it goes forward. You don't have to worry about clutch control or anything like that. So shifting gears is simply just a case of pulling the clutch, kicking up that lever there, and then letting go of the clutch, and then you can just go forward. Okay, so it's really, really simple. And again, I'm going to slow down, coming up to where I started. Then use the front brake and the rear brake together and pull in the clutch. Put the bike in first gear as I stop, and then I've made a stop. Now at the moment, the bike is still in first gear, so if I let go of the clutch, it's just going to stall. So what I need to do is lift up halfway, just like that, and you'll see that little icon there, the neutral, and then I can let go of the clutch, and then we're in neutral. Alright, so I'm back here to where I started. The bike is in neutral, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to go up this road, put it in first, go up the road, turn around and come back, and we're going to go a little bit more over the gearing, and then how to balance and turn the bike. If any of you have ridden a push bike before, or a bicycle, you know that balance point. You don't have to be going that quickly to get that balance point. You know, the bike will start balancing itself once you get past 3-4 miles an hour. Okay, so again, no gas. I'm just going to pull off using the clutch. Now I've still got my foot on the floor because I'm not going that fast. There we go, 3 miles an hour, and I can lift my foot up off the ground. So this is kind of how you should practice using gearing and things like that. Is no gas whatsoever. Don't worry about the throttle. You just worry about using clutch control, just getting the feel for that bite point. Because once you've got that, I mean, you know, I'm traveling 4 miles an hour at the moment, and I'm not using any of my feet next to the bike to stabilize myself. I'm simply just using the bike's momentum to keep me balanced. So now I'm going to shift into second. So the bike is struggling, but there you go, it's got there. It's a slight hill, this road, so that's why it struggles a little bit, so you can probably hear it on the camera. And 6 miles an hour. Alright. So balancing. A lot of it is to do with the handlebars here. So as long as you keep the handlebars going straight, and you're going over 3 miles an hour, then in theory you should be able to keep the bike balanced. Turning is another issue entirely. You don't usually use the handlebars to turn unless you're going at like a slow speed or something like that. So I'm going to pull in the clutch, I'm going to put in first gear, and I'm going to demonstrate a turn for you. So this is a slow speed turn, so I am having to use the handlebars. Now I did have to put my foot down there just to make the turn and get on the correct side of the road. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a bit of a figure of 8 here. So I'm back to where we started. I'm going to go down this road here, and we're going to do a figure of 8. So kind of imagine as if we've got 2 cones just up the road a little bit. And it's a good way just to practice your turning and getting tighter and tighter circles. And of course, the heavier the bike is, the more difficult this is going to be. But the way how you do these tight, narrow turns is to drag the rear brake. Now, you'd be surprised at how recently I actually learned that trick. Is to drag the rear brake as you're turning, and it makes the bike a lot more stable. Now, I had to put my foot down there because I was getting a bit too close to that car. Let's go again. So I'm dragging the rear brake at the moment, and what I mean by dragging is I'm pushing it ever so slightly. Pushing the rear brake ever so slightly down, just to feel a little bit of that brake friction. and it stabilizes the bike. So this is just me doing a figure of 8, going no more than about 5 or 6 miles an hour. There we go. So that's how you do sharp turning on a motorcycle. I'm going to go back to where I started. I put the bike in neutral, using my front and rear brake, and I'm stopping. When you're starting off, as you're stopping, you might want to use both your feet. Put both your feet on either side of the bike, because you might struggle with the weight of the bike initially, you know, going from one direction to another. So when you're stopping, you might actually find that you're putting your foot down a little bit too late and the bike is already going, you know, the tipping direction like this, or maybe the other way, depending on which foot you want to put down on the floor. Normally it would be this foot that you put down on the floor. So you'd have the bike in gear still as you come to a stop, and you have your other foot on the rear brake and this foot down on the floor. And this is what they'll teach you during your full license, during your test, or your test training rather, is they will teach you to keep the bike in gear when you get to a standstill. Then when you're stopped, then what you can do is you can shift from here to here, lift the bike in neutral, and then back onto the rear brake. That's what they'll teach you. It's not necessarily the most practical thing in the world. You'll find that after you've been riding for a year, you'll probably forget about that and you'll be comfortable riding the way how you want to ride. Turning at speed is different to turning at slow speeds. Now normally at slow speeds you would use the handlebars to turn the bike around. When you're traveling say 10 miles an hour, maybe a little bit less, maybe 8 miles an hour, you'll find that the way you actually turn the bike is using counter steering. You wouldn't actually turn the handlebars all that much, but in order to go left, you would turn the handlebars slightly right and the bike will tip this way. To go right, the opposite approach applies, where you would tip the handlebars to the left slightly and the bike would tip to the right. That's when you're going above 10 miles an hour. It's something that you pick up really, really quickly because it's the same as if you were riding a bicycle. Right, so I'm going to move off again. I'm going to demonstrate engine braking. It's the same thing that what you'd normally get in a car, where if you leave the car in gear as you're slowing down, the engine will slow down the car naturally. The same thing applies with a motorcycle, so I'm going to demonstrate that now. So if we go forward, I'm going to shift up a gear. Let's go on the correct side of the road again. So at the moment I'm in second gear. If I let go of the throttle, no brakes, no nothing, the bike is automatically slowing itself down. I'm going to speed up and the bike slows itself down. This isn't so much of an issue on a motorcycle that is this small, where you can just use the brakes to practice slowing the bike down. But on a larger motorcycle, with the weight, you'll find that actually slowing the bike down becomes a lot easier if you decide to use engine braking. So I'm in third gear again. I'm going to slow down using just engine braking. So downshift, gas, and let go of the clutch. Again, clutch in, downshift, gas, let go of the clutch. So what that is called rev matching. What rev matching does, it allows the bike to use engine braking in a controlled manner. Here you go, so second gear, let's do third gear. I'm going to slow down again using engine braking, no brakes, just engine braking. Clutch in, gear down, gas, slow down. You see that? Now this is a more advanced technique, so it's not something that you need to worry about when you're riding a smaller motorcycle like this. If you want to slow down, then the easiest way to do it, so at the moment I'm in third, let's get into fourth. So I'm not going to use engine braking for this. All I'm going to do is you're going to use the brakes. So I'm going to come to a stop. I'm going to slow down using the brakes. Bike is still in gear, and as soon as you get it, as soon as you feel it going down the revs, when it's about to stall, you can pull in the clutch and start kicking the bike down into gear. And at the moment I've got it into neutral. And that's how you would stop a bike as a novice. Let's demonstrate that one more time. So again, I'm going to get into fourth gear. So imagine that there is a stop sign or a red light coming up. I'm going to use the brakes, I'm going to slow down, pull in the clutch, and bang down the gears. You don't have to do engine brake on a little bike like this. It's more for the advanced riders, you know. The guys that are riding 1 litres and things like that. 1000 cc's. Alright, so then when you guys come to a stop, the obvious thing to do is to turn the bike off simply by turning the keys. As mentioned earlier, you can use this switch here. Just make sure that you have the bike in neutral, so use the clutch to get that gear lever from first up to the middle between first and second. And then yeah, just use the little switch there to turn the bike off with the key. And then you put the side stand down. Then once you're here, you can turn the handlebars, then turn the key to lock the steering, and you're done. A habit that I have is to cut off the battery from the engine. It's not necessary, it's just a habit that I have, but you don't have to do it by any means. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is show you how to move the bike when the engine's off. So say for example you have it in a garage and you're trying to get it out the garage, you're trying to put it back in the garage. This is how you do it. So we're going to lift the bike off the side stand, we're going to kick it back. Now the most obvious way is to hold onto the handlebar. So I'm standing next to the side of the bike like this. Again, the same side where the side stand is. Hold onto the brake here on this side. I can push the bike forward, pull the brake to stop the bike, and then I can pull it back. If you're going to push it back, put your hand on the rear seat, on the pillion seat, and push it back like this. So another way that you can move the bike forward and backwards is if we get on the bike. Another obvious way to move it is by having your feet on either side of the bike and walking it back like this. Of course, if it's a heavier bike, this is going to be harder to do. And you can push it forward as well, but this is harder, to be honest. If I'm going to push it forward, I prefer to have the engine on and use the engine to push me forward. But for reversing, you can definitely do it this way, like that. Alright, so another way that you can move the bike around whilst it's off, if you can't push it forward or push it backwards, then what you can do is you can do a pivot on the kickstand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my foot down on the kickstand itself. I'm going to grab the far side of the bike, I'm going to lift it up this way, and I'm going to lift from the handlebars. Now, depending on the kind of bike that you have, you might want to grab directly on the handlebar here, or maybe you want to grab on the middle somewhere like this. It's personal preference and kind of the way how the bike's designed. And then you can twist around like this. And twist the bike all the way around just to show you. And then when you're ready to put it down, you can simply put it down like that. Give that a practice. It's quite a simple thing to do. I mean, once you get used to it, so what I'm doing is I'm resting the top part of the bike on my thighs as I twist the bike around. It's a bit unnerving the first few times to do it, but don't worry, you'll get the hang of it. Now you don't need to worry about the weight on the kickstand at all. Believe me, these things are built pretty strong. That thing will be able to pick up a lot more than what the bike actually weighs, so you don't need to worry about that. Alright guys, that'll do for this one. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you found it enjoyable. I hope that you've learned something from this, especially if you're looking to get into riding motorcycles. This is obviously a 125, so it's a pretty small bike. And of course, here in the UK, that is the law, that the maximum size motorcycle that you're allowed to ride legally is a 125cc without a full riding license. But we'll get to all that in another video. But hopefully this has given you a bit of an insight into how to ride a motorcycle. But yeah, thanks again guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.